Hello and welcome to the Senteon and CIS webinar series. So right now we just got me. Our guest is heading on over momentarily, and hopefully Rich will also be joining. But we got episode 56 here. Bill Campbell will be the guest heading in here in a moment. So while we wait for him, I'll kick off with some of the housekeeping. So let me go ahead and get my share screen going here. All right. Toss that onto the main screen. So the biggest thing to announce, again, we are speaking over at CornCon. So very excited. I will be giving a talk on what you may guess, strategic endpoint hardening with CIS. So very excited to dive into that with the friends in Davenport. So that'll be next week on Saturday, October 5th. Also want to shout out IT Nation and ConnectWise again. Senteon is lucky enough to be a finalist, so we will have our own booth over at IT Nation this year, and we will be having a 5-minute presentation, really just talking about Pitch It and hopefully winning that nice prize. So outside of that, Senteon, as a reminder, is a single platform to harden workstations, servers, and browsers to the CIS standards. So we have a few things here you can do on our website. We do retain all of the webinar episodes that we host. You can see them right on the website, and we do write some blogs about it as well. So you can see those right here if you care to look at those. And as always, to all of our guests, if you ever want to go into Senteon, you are welcome to kick off a trial. Again, at the website, there's a login button. You can kick off a free evaluation of Senteon. The feature highlight today, I am in a single machine right now, our demo machine, and we do have this actively being hardened. So you can see all of the target options here versus what Senteon actually changed it to. Again, I want to emphasize here, Senteon is performing remediation. So that's the big thing with us. So you can search for any setting here. You can see what it was before Senteon made the change. And the most important thing to really show off here, we can also show you all of that change history. So whichever admin or engineer is making that change, all of that is automatically tracked with the current versus target option. So if you need to hand this off to an auditor, prove to your cyber insurance partners of the state of those configs, all of that is possible. So very awesome. The last thing you'll be able to get with that free evaluation account is a ton of reporting. Let me scroll up here. By default, these Windows machines that you're looking at, whether it's a workstation, a server, or your browser, are typically going to sit anywhere from 15 to 17% compliant out of the gate, so about 73 settings. And Senteon is happy to show you not only which settings are non-compliant in their recommendation, we can also show you where they fit into CIS or relevant regulatory frameworks. So we do have the cross maps here. And the best part about it, again, is we are performing the remediation. So you can see here all of the now compliant endpoints that we have actually hardened. So now you can attest to your security posture and prove to your clients that you have done what you have told them you'd be doing. So very awesome here. Great free offering for anyone who wants to check this out. And outside of that, I'll show one more thing before we get into the episode. The other piece, this is completely free forever. You can get access to our freemium here with our catalog. You can add in the columns and other aspects that you may want to look at, whether it's CMMC, 800-171, HIPAA, PCI. You can add all these in. You'll notice some have crosswalks, some don't. So you can always filter out the blanks and see that there. So diving in to Senteon, I'm very excited to show this off and answer any questions. But for today's episode, I know our guest is setting up in the background. If we wanted to hopefully pull them on here in a moment, some technical difficulties, which is always lovely. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and kick off and pull up these slides. So again, we are doing our webinar series on the CIS benchmarks. We've done a I think like 40-part series on how to harden the Windows workstation and Windows Server. And then we headed over and did a 10-part series on how to harden a Chrome browser. And now we're at how to harden an Edge browser. So this is a very in-depth webinar series, and there will be definitely some technical aspects. I know I'm reading the private chat right now for our guest. It looks like there is no video output that he's struggling with. So if anyone from backstage wants to hop on and be my guest, we can definitely do that. Otherwise, you just get me today. So we will go ahead and kick off. Again, we'll go into this first setting. So these CIS benchmarks are definitely all preventative security settings. So these recommendations really come from CIS directly, which again is this globally recognized nonprofit. And looks like we do have Bill Campbell here joining us. Looks like the video is still broken. How's the audio?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Amazing. We do have audio, so that's the important part here, right?
Sweet.
So how's life going, Bill? Little camera issue?
Yeah, I mean, 10 different applications trying to access your camera. Maybe I have one of the CIS controls on and don't know it.
There is a level 2 control that will just block your camera from even being able to work.
Yeah, it says no video input. So interesting.
Yeah, your USB's hardened too much, or the camera itself is just not reading.
Yeah, I am using my work laptop, so it could be.
No worries at all. Now, Bill, I know we didn't get to do much backstage talking and catching up, but you are just coming back from a trip, if I remember right. Is that correct?
Actually, I'm in the middle of it. I'm on an Alaskan cruise, and we are about to pull in a port in about 30 minutes.
We need camera. This is like the best opportunity for everybody.
I know. Crazy.
Too funny. Well, that's absolutely awesome. I do have the first slide pulled up here, but Bill, before we do dive into this, you're very active, definitely in the CompTIA community. You were introduced to me by our mutual friend, Henry Tim of the Tech Degenerates. So very active in the community from what I have seen here. Do you mind just taking a minute and introducing yourself a little bit and your background?
Sure. Again, my name's Bill Campbell, CEO of Balance Logic. We celebrated 20 years in business in August, so that's pretty exciting. Started my career in the Marine Corps, spent about 9 years in the Marine Corps, went out and joined the civilian world and had a couple different positions. I was the IT manager for EasyPass of New York and New Jersey. I also was the CIO for a government contractor in DC. I spent a couple years there and decided red tape and politics is not for me. Let me start my own company. And that was 20 years ago.
That was my question, because obviously you said CEO. I was curious if you were an entrepreneur like us over here at Senteon.
Yeah. I own a couple different companies, but Balance Logic is our flagship company. And again, like I said, celebrating 20 years, really focusing on the marketing and the cybersecurity arena.
Now, when you say marketing, what does that mean? Are you helping create marketing for MSPs, or can you expand on that?
So my company is somewhat unique. We offer a variety of different support services, if you will. It's a single provider with multiple solutions. So we offer full service managed IT as well as managed security, cybersecurity. We offer full service marketing, full service creative services, web design, as well as voice over IP phone systems.
And you even have an SEO landing page. I don't know if you can also see the screen, but I'm showing off the website right now. You have quite the amount of content on here.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're actually, October 15th, our new website is going to be launched. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, congrats. And it looks like you have a lot of podcasts and webinar type of content in this landing page here I'm looking at. Is that what this is?
Yeah, we try to do a lot of different content. So Balance Logic Insider is our monthly newsletter that we put out on LinkedIn now. So hopefully you can go there at our Balance Logic page on LinkedIn and subscribe to that. Balance Logic Minute is really just a minute or so of quick tips, if you will. And then we do an in-person seminar series called Breakfast with Balanced Logic, where in the community we get along and get a bunch of business owners and professionals together and really just nail down some specific topics.
That's awesome. So very cool. And it looks like these are all free resources. So very much
Absolutely.
something for any MSP or anyone looking to understand more about marketing. Likely would gain
Absolutely.
some value here.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
very awesome. Well, let's transition back over to the webinar series here with CIS, Bill. You've been in the industry for 20 plus years, from the marketing, from the security side, MSP. Sounds like you really have a good encompassing scope. When I say CIS, and Henry, Tim, again, our mutual friend, introduced us, he thought you'd be a good guest. Why is that? How does CIS live in your world, and how do you leverage it?
Well, I mean, we live it, breathe it every day, right? Because a big part of the business is cybersecurity managed IT, and then some people say that I uh, I take certifications to a new level because I've got 50 plus technical certifications,
Wow.
so I really dive deep into that. But with the CIS status or standard, it's it's really basic, right? I mean, on the surface, it's basic. These
Sure.
are these are common sense things that we should be doing every day. We should be doing internally for our own company, but and really focusing on our clients to make sure they get done. I think the challenge is there's a lot of MSPs or people that work in MSPs don't really know the CIS standard, let alone know how to implement it. But if you really dive deep into it, and I shouldn't say dive deep, but if you really look at it, they're really common sense, simple things. And I think that's what we're going to talk about and go over today.
That is a lot of this. So the webinar series again is on the CIS benchmarks, which are literally one-to-one recommendations of set this to that, this to that. And it is something you can do manually. You can use a vendor. There's ways you can get this done. And like you said, it is simple by design because it's telling you what to do. But obviously, when you're implementing and remediating anything, there's a lot more to it than just flipping a switch.
Yep, agreed.
So, given that marketing side and your experience, I mean, going very technical in depth with your certifications and everything, do you ever say the word CIS to your prospects as an MSP? Do they know that framework? They have any clue? Do you leverage it in your marketing?
We don't leverage it via marketing because it's like saying any of the technical terms. If
Okay.
you ask a client or a prospect to define cybersecurity, they're really not going to be able to do that. They know
Yeah.
that's that computer security stuff, right?
Yeah.
So in marketing, especially with MSPs, we try not to use the buzzwords. Explain it in layman's terms to where they could understand it. So if we go to our clients and say, yeah, this month we're going to really focus on the CIS benchmark and these
Yep.
standards, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Right. But if we go and we say, hey, look, we're going to work on most of the most common sense security controls that are going to help protect your business, the low hanging fruit, if you will, they're going to be like,
Yep.
oh, okay. Because you're kind of talking on their level.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and you said when you talk to MSPs, so are you also servicing MSPs directly?
From a marketing or IT standpoint.
I guess whichever business model it is.
Yeah. I mean, we do some co-manage, so we
Okay.
work with organizations that have on-prem IT. MSPs, it's an interesting industry. There's the big, well, I guess it's not just MSPs, but businesses alone. Competition is very scary to people.
Yeah.
So and I think that's one thing we need to change in our industry is where MSPs can rely on other MSPs, not they're trying to take their clients, but more on leveraging the gaps
Yeah.
in knowledge and experience. From the marketing side, we are going to start working with MSPs directly, not through Balance Logic, but I started
Okay.
a new digital marketing company. So that'll be coming out on LinkedIn and in the press pretty soon of where we can help MSPs from a marketing point of view as well.
That's awesome to hear. We're all excited to keep up to date on that, Bill. That's very
Yeah.
cool. So, and I agree with you, right? Talking CIS with some of the people I've met at shows, even very high revenue generating MSPs, a lot of the time they may not even know CIS as a framework or what is a framework, right? There is
Right.
just so many different scoped of MSPs to where you can be successful without a framework if you are servicing security, which is highly recommended, right? Bill, you'll agree with that. But at the end of the day, there are aspects to being an MSP that don't have to align with security. But if you do, follow a framework. It doesn't have to be CIS. This series is going to promote CIS, but very much it is open to whatever framework you feel with. All right. Well, with that, all of that said, Bill, that's an awesome background. Let's dive into some of these settings that we're talking about today. Again, we are talking about the settings to secure a Microsoft Edge browser. So a little bit about the slide here. We do have the setting name and the recommendation at the top, some did you know, why it matters. But at the bottom left is a control mapping. So the CIS controls, again, are 18 different recommendations, or really a prioritized list of things to do to better secure your security posture, the left of boom, things you can do before an incident happens, right? And this setting will fit into those various controls. This one in this instance is 9.4. But on the bottom right is a level. Level 1, level 2 is what you may or may not see today. Obviously, level 1 is this one. And this is where it's saying, hey, everybody should be doing this. If you're an MSP, if you're an SMB, if you're grandma, right? These are machines or settings that you should be doing on every machine. Why they're not secured by default? Different conversation. But we're here to talk about the settings and their recommendations. So Bill, the first one here is allow managed extensions to use the enterprise hardware platform API is set to disabled. Giving access and permissions to anything always scares me instinctively, but why is this one especially important to disable?
Well, yeah, and I think this one's a little challenging. You use a lot of big enterprise words in there, right? I
Yep,
mean, I mean,
that's a good way to put it. These
yeah,
GPOs are not marketed towards anybody.
exactly. So basically, what this is saying is, look, in API's application programming interface, it's a one-to-one connection where applications can connect together, right?
Yep,
So you don't want anything connecting directly to your hardware. That's just a big no-no, right? Because then
yep,
you can let bad actors come in, exploit that API, and really take over your hardware, and from there they can just pretty much do anything. So we definitely don't want to do that. You know, I mean, it could take over your system resources, it could
yep.
lateral moves, you know, take over your accounts, buffer overflows. I mean, there's just so many things that can
I love that
happen.
you're calling out some of these MITRE ATT&CK techniques. We
Yeah,
might even mention later in the episode, but that's super good. And going back again to this marketing hat, and I don't mean to lean so far into this, Bill, but it's a very important topic because a lot of MSPs are always like, Senteon, I see value. I know what it's doing. I at least have a conceptual idea of why I need a product like this, right? A platform that does automated remediation. But they go, I don't know how to talk about this with my customer. So when you talk about marketing again, to dive a little bit deeper, do you talk about the types of attacks? Like, I can't imagine you ever say the word buffer overflow, but like, do you talk about that attack side at all with prospects?
we do, but we again, you know, the key in communicating is you got to talk on a level of the prospect you're talking with, right? So with something like this, it's we give real world examples in layman's terms. Hey, look, would you be okay, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, right? Would you be okay if one of your employees was surfing the internet and then all of a sudden a bad actor took over your entire computer? No, of course I'm not okay with that. Okay, well
Well,
then this is one of the things we need to do, right? I mean, you don't want to say, "Oh, you know, the API did this through the enterprise." That they're not going to understand what you're saying, and their eyes are going to gloss over, right?
yeah,
It's great that you know those technical terms, but talk to somebody who's technical, like you or I, right? In that conversation. But when you're
yep.
talking to your prospects and clients, you got to talk to them to where they understand it.
Yeah, I love the way that you're talking about this, and again, that is just something that needs to be more addressed in the market. So excited for that new launch or the new arm you're going to be putting out there. So to summarize on this slide, to put another just real world metaphor to it, having this to where you're not just allowing APIs to connect to hardware or whatnot. I mean, it's like you have your own personal toolbox, right? It's only for you to use. But if you allow this API, it's like letting strangers come in, use the tools, and you have no idea what happens to the tools when you're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right, let's go over to this next setting. The next two are very similar, but distinctly different. Allow or block audio capture is set to disabled. So this again is GPO with the options right in the setting name because there's no standardization in this. But CIS is saying to explicitly disable this so that audio capture is not possible. And I will note as well, Bill, this is a level 2 setting. So this is something that could potentially cause disruption. I don't know how the breadth of this that goes, but we are on maybe an Edge browser right now. Would I be able to use my headset? I actually don't know the answer to that. That's a little granular. But Bill, why don't we want to let audio capture happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of those interesting ones, right? Because people are like, oh, they're done with their webinar or whatever it
Yep.
may be, and they leave their microphone on.
There you go.
This is not good, right? And most people say, well, what's the big deal? It's just a microphone. Well, a bad actor can capture your audio. They can capture our audio right now. I'm sure they can't capture ours because it's secure. But the standard person on a webinar or on a Teams call or whatever it may be, your audio can be captured midstream. It's kind of like a man in the middle attack. But what's interesting is, and this may not be new for everybody, but with the growing AI in the industry, there's something called audio jacking, where they can use AI to compromise your audio, take it, and even use that for voice recognition, to clone your voice, to send out voicemails. There's so many different things that can be done with audio that's captured. So definitely want to disable that.
I think I'm going to dive into a little bit on the AI stuff, because it sounds like you have a little bit of a background. But the other piece I want to add to this is, deciding, like, we are, myself and Bill, we made the accepted risk to allow audio to be used on the Restream website, which is where we're streaming from, right? So we did make that conscious risk, and if you have the settings in place, you do have to explicitly allow, right? If you have this, disabled by nature, it's going to force you to choose the websites that are allowed to have it. So again, you're accepting the risk where you need to do your job function, but you're mitigating the risk everywhere else. So very, very much. But yeah, Bill, you said the magic words, AI. So let's dive into that a little bit. Again, I hate to keep leaning towards the marketing, but not enough people talk about this. Do you say the words AI to them? Is there a lot of fear around it? Does the general consumer even know what AI is in today's world?
Well, I think it's the same thing with cybersecurity, right? Is we know the terms, different stuff. It's the computer security stuff, right? Just with AI, when you talk to anybody regarding AI that doesn't have a background, oh, it's AI. It's just you can go in and type something in, and output will come out. Well, it's so much more in depth than that, and AI is so much more powerful. And there's different levels that, and again, a lot of people don't understand. AI is a top level term, just like cybersecurity is. There's a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, but there's several elements of AI that make up, artificial intelligence. It's not just AI is one thing. AI is actually your top level umbrella, where you have generative AI, you have machine learning, you have deep learning. There's different levels to AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's very important just to call out there with this, and hopefully the next setting here as we dive into it, and we can look at this one. But the same thing, but it's allow or block the video, or rather screen capture, or no, video capture, is also set to disabled. I don't know if there's actually maybe AI risk here. Obviously, there's spoofed videos. That's getting better and better. If you look close, you can probably tell. But this one here as well, block video capture, right? You mentioned when you're done with the webinar, if your microphone's left all, you don't want audio capture, that microphone to magically turn on again. This sounds even more sensitive. I don't necessarily want my camera to be catching anything if I don't turn it on.
And it's actually
talking about here.
It's more dangerous, right?
Yep.
Audio. I mean, how many people can really detect who somebody is by their voice? Some have very distinctive voices, but video, there's no doubting that, right? Typically, if you see a picture or a video of somebody, you know who they are. So, and this is a big thing that's going on forever, where bad actors definitely exploit webcams, especially on laptops. It can be done. You can exploit TVs now. Well, not now. I mean, you could. For a long time, but
I mean, there's all the Chromecasting and there's so many ways to exploit the TV too.
Right. But not just your video, right? I mean, I think video is the next slide, or
screen capture. We can also show the next slide. These all tie together.
Yeah. So say you leave your webcam on and you're going throughout your day. Well, now you can capture things that are on your desk, in your office. Going back to the audio, you can capture conversations if they're personal conversations. You can capture PII. There's
Yeah.
so many different things. So the video capture, in my opinion, is more dangerous than the
Yeah.
audio capture.
Absolutely. And let's look at this next one here just to kind of wrap up the allow or deny capture stuff. But tell me a little bit about how these three settings, you did just say PII, right? So how could these three settings or any combination of one or the other, could these be leveraged to make a better phishing email or anything like that for a bad actor?
Yeah, I mean they could, because you're using the part where you're what's the word I'm looking for? You're showing that somebody, right? That
Right. You can
that
create that credibility, right? You make that email
credibility,
look
that
more
connection.
clickable. Hmm.
Yep. Hey, look, this is the slide we went over 2 weeks ago. Not sure if you remember, but, and then you're like, oh, I recognize that. It's off my
Yeah.
desktop. So you automatically assume, you create that connection with that person.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. I don't know. I know phishing is likely something any MSP has brought up to their end customers. That is something that is more of a, I guess, understood term in today's world, right? So relating some of these preventative settings to a topic that your clients might understand, like phishing, can be a way to help them realize why you need to prioritize some of these settings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one example. And phishing is, I mean, it's been around for a while, but in my opinion,
Yep,
it's still in its infancy. A lot of MSPs
it's gonna
do
get
not
bad.
offer or help their clients with this service. And I think every MSP should, either, if they can't do it themselves, create a partnership with another vendor or another MSP to offer this. I can tell you that, give you one example. We have a pretty large client that we implemented phishing or security awareness,
Sure.
and we did an assessment. And 6 months later, and then 12 months later, it was amazing how the security awareness culture increased. Yes, did it increase our
Interesting.
help desk tickets? Absolutely. But I would rather have more help desk tickets than dealing with, ransomware or issues at the client. So I think
You
it's
know,
very important.
one thing that we talk about with these settings, right? Because some of these settings can change behavior, right? The ones we're talking about, even for example, right? You can no longer do screen capture. Like that is going to change a behavior because you're no longer able to do that, right? So with these preventative technical policies in place, you're almost directing how the employees can interact with technology. And something I talk about, curious your input on this, Bill, is by having these security policies in place, you're almost forcing that security culture to mature. So having these in place feeds into having a more security minded client. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, here's the key to security awareness training, right? It's not about really educating. It's about changing the user community's behavior. That's the key to success of security awareness. It's, yeah, people, you can educate people all you want. It's their choice to be educated, right? You can't
Yeah,
force them to be educated, but you can force, and I use that term loosely, you can force behavior changes. And
yeah,
that's where the success is going to be. To give you an example with screen capture, it happens every day. How many
yep,
clients or how many MSPs have clients that, oh, they take a snapshot of an invoice, or they take a
yep,
snapshot of QuickBooks or something like that, and they send it through Teams or they send it through email. Well,
yep.
now you're just passing along this proprietary or personal information that can be leaked. It can be exfiltrated. It's just, screen capture is a bad setting.
It is. It absolutely is. And one thing I also want to note here, this is a setting I want to emphasize. This is within the browser, right? So this is restricting screen capture of just the browser things. There is additional OS hardening stuff to where you can do the same type of action, but this is regarding specifically to the browser to limit the attack surface of your browser and, like Bill said, force that behavior change, right? Educating them on why this is bad. I mean, you just said this. You welcome the additional tickets if a setting or if something generates more, because it means they're aware of what's going on. And honestly, Bill, from your perspective as an MSP, it probably validates to your business model that you're making a difference there, right? That client now knows what they're paying for. And even though that's tickets, they might be maybe a little annoyed, they know this is because it relates to security. It gives you a chance to educate.
Absolutely, and it's one of the other keys to success of an MSP is humanizing your IT,
Yeah.
right? Showing them that you really do care. You're not just a vendor collecting that money every month. You truly
You're right.
care about the security of their company. Not that it's going to cause you to do more work. You're being proactive instead of reactive.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go over to this next setting here. We're getting out of the capture thing. So the long one, so bear with me. Allow personalization of ads, Microsoft Edge, search, news, and other Microsoft services by sending browser history, favorites, and collections, usage, and other browser data to Microsoft is set to disabled. Why does Microsoft want even more data than they probably already have without telling us?
Right.
What's
I
the
think that
benefit of giving them more, Bill? Is there any?
Well, I mean, they may think so, but I think the next couple slides are what I call Big Brother slides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be tracked. These are all about privacy. You don't want, it's great that, while you're looking at your email or you're surfing the web, that you're
Yeah.
getting ads that are relative to you that you can just click on. That's very convenient. But the downside of that is now there's a potential of proprietary information that can be leaked
What's
out.
being sent? Microsoft isn't
Exactly.
telling us. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and it can be embarrassing sometimes. I'll be true. I'll be honest. Nobody wants to be standing over your shoulder, and then these ads pop up of things that you're looking at, yesterday or during lunchtime. It could get you in trouble too. So, but the bottom line is, you
That's
don't
fair.
want nobody wants to be tracked, right? We don't want to be
Yeah.
tracked.
It's funny when like personal ads first started, like it definitely seemed like a positive, like, oh, I'm gonna get more targeted material. This is nice. And then you look into how they're gathering that and how they're figuring it out. It's like,
Yep.
why are these all turned on by default? Shouldn't they have asked me first?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Security is not about convenience.
Yeah.
And as humans, we like convenience. We like to take the easy route out. And I think that's why there's a lot of, kickback when we have to implement certain security controls. It's going to make my job harder. It's going to take me longer. Yes, it will. It's not made to be convenient. It's made to be secure.
Yeah. And going about this one, I mean, just one more piece on this data exposure to Microsoft, and maybe you caught this or not. We didn't talk about this in the pre-show, but LinkedIn having an update to where it's auto-enabled for them to ingest any content published on LinkedIn into their AI model, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a setting you can turn off, but by default, it was on, right? Did you see that, or is that news to you as well?
It's news to me, but not shocking because a lot of websites are doing.
Yeah, not shocking. That's the
Yeah.
worst part about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, because the more AI comes out, I mean, it's exploding now. Well, in order to feed the AI monster, you need data. So all these apps are going to take whatever
Yep.
you put in and automatically collect it. But it's up to us as MSPs and to make sure we educate our clients that not.
Absolutely. I mean, MSPs have to evangelize all of not only the vendor technology, right? You are the evangelist for Senteon, for whoever vendor, right? But you also have to evangelize just security as a whole, because these end clients are focusing on their business and what makes them money. And security is not part of their revenue generating model, although it is a cost of doing business and can be used to the advantage of differentiating and so forth. But at the end of the day, when you sell a t-shirt, if you're a shirt selling business, like that is not directly security from their
Right.
perspective. So, all right, let's keep on going here. So this next one here is allow queries to a browser network time service is set to enabled. So this one is actually allowing additional things to happen here. Maybe because we don't want our clock to be manipulated or anything by a bad actor, but why do we want to actually allow this to happen?
Well, because network time or timing is lots of security protocols rely on this. If you remember, I guess a couple years ago, Active Directory. Well, it's still true today, but right,
Still very true. I'm
yeah,
sure wherever you're going with it, AD
right.
doesn't change
But the
fast.
big issue is that the network time wasn't set properly on your domain controller, so it was off on your client. So you come in on Monday morning and you have a ton of tickets because your clients couldn't log in because their time was off. So that's a
There you go.
perfect example of why time is important. But for the most part, it's now that we kind of, I don't want to say move away, but we're using certificates. Certificates are based on time. Tokens are based on time. It's the name, right? It's time-based tokens. So that's why it's important.
You need that accuracy
Yeah.
for the secure communications.
Yep.
That's what that is. And as you can see, again, this is an L1 setting. If you're keeping up with that bottom right hand of the screen for these slides, like this is something that, and most of these settings are things that you can change and make more secure without even telling your end client, because they're not going to notice. This is something they probably wouldn't
True,
notice, right?
but I would say that I would not change any settings without communicating to the client. You don't have to tell them every little setting, but I would
Ooh,
say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this time through this time, we're going to be making some security upgrades. So if you see anything
sure.
that's off or you have any issues, let us
Okay.
know, send us a ticket. But always, I would say, always communicate to the client. There's no such thing as over communicating, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I can definitely get behind that. Your first take on that, I was going to push back. I was like, there's 500 settings on the OS alone. You're going to tell them every
No,
change you're
no,
doing?
just a time frame that you're making changes. So nobody likes to be taken off
Yep.
guard, and they come in and something's not working. I mean, we have clients that you cannot
Yep.
change or move an icon on their desktop, or else they will lose their
Ooh.
mind. And for us,
Yep.
we get aggravated and agitated, MSPs do, but you have to put yourself in their shoes, and this is a lot of our healthcare clients where they come in and the front desk and check in and check out, and something's changed. So you're blowing away their routine, which really kills their productivity. So in our eyes, it may look
Yep.
like it's aggravating, but we're here. IT is not about technology, it's about customer service. We're providing a service to them.
Yep. Well said. All right, let's go to this next one here. Ensure allow remote debugging is set to disabled. Bill, this sounds like the MSP wouldn't be able to do their job remotely with this setting. Is that what this is referring to, or is
Yeah,
this
this is
something
something else,
else?
and this is scary, right? Debugging, right?
Yep.
This really applies to a lot of software development, but basically, this is saying, this is more like crash reports and stuff like that, where you don't
Yep.
want a third party coming in to remote debug your browser or debug an application, because that could give them privileges that you don't necessarily want.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, if you, again, I always try to relate this to real world, right? So if you do have, you just get a new car, right? And it's in a dangerous area, it'd be like, letting the hood of your car just completely exposed, open for anyone to come in and do what they need to do. And that's just access that isn't necessary. So there are better ways to do this. One thing I will shout out, CIS takes all of these recommendations, assuming you do not have any other platforms to perform this action. If Bill and his MSPs need it to do something in this scope, he probably has a more secure or more mature way of performing this process without using this
Exactly.
insecure edge setting.
100%.
Yep. Awesome. All right, let's go to this next one here. So allow the audio sandbox to run is set to enabled. So sandbox here might be a new term for some of our listeners. So if you can start off with that one, Bill, and then talk about this setting a
Yeah,
little
it's an
bit.
interesting word, right? And a lot of people don't know it, the word sandbox.
Don't associate it with
Or
Microsoft
any
or
security, right?
naturally,
I
right?
look at it
It's
this way: if you have kids and you take them to the playground, they play in the sandbox, right? Why do they play in the sandbox? They play in the sandbox because it's a controlled, safe area that you can keep
yep,
an eye on the kids, right? Same thing applies
perfect.
to cybersecurity. That applies to audio, right, or video, or development, or whatever it may be. And a lot of security vendors actually run in a sandbox. So when they detect a file that you get in them, whether it's malicious or not, it automatically goes in a sandbox, it checks it and releases it from the sandbox, and you never even know that happens, right? So the sandbox is
Yep,
just an isolated area where things are isolated and checked, if you will. They're not free roam
yep,
for everybody.
yep. If only we could get every email link to maybe go there first, but another day. Containers are
Yeah.
getting popular, but a little bit more of a mature topic to get to. But very good explanation here. So very much agree here. It is just making sure that audio is, and the sandbox, like you said with your kids, it's a controlled area, right? You're not supposed to find anything in there. It's very controlled. You know what's going on. You know it's safe, and you're going to make sure it's taken care of before you allow it to go anywhere else. So perfect there. This next one here, kind of, again, I maybe should have done a couple extra searches on this one, but allow unconfigured sites to be reloaded in Internet Explorer mode is set to disabled. This one sounds like to me if the new browser is Microsoft Edge, that's what we're talking about here, their newest release, right? So Internet Explorer is officially dead. As a quick note, there is a setting on the Windows OS to completely block access to Internet Explorer. This setting here sounds like it's doing something similar, that if a website can't handle the new Chromium Edge browser, that it may try to auto-load in Internet Explorer. And this setting sounds like it says, this is a bad idea. Why the heck would we do that? Is that what this is saying
you
here?
can correlate it to HTTPS and HTTP, right? If your site is not configured for HTTPS, default to HTTP. Well, sure. Again, we talk about convenience. That's great. We still want to see the information, but now we're seeing it in an insecure manner. So basically it's saying if the website you're visiting is not configured or designed for Edge, then, just load it in Internet Explorer. Well, the problem with that is now you stripped off, a handful of really important security features, which we definitely don't want to do.
Yep. So why would we allow that old rusty door that doesn't work anymore to be locked with whatever we're browsing the web with? It's probably not a very strong lock, if there's even one that exists.
Exactly.
So very, very perfect there. The next one here is allow user feedback is set to disabled. Is this another privacy?
This is
Microsoft
100% that, and a lot of people follow that. Something happens. Oh, here, provide the feedback to us so we can make our service better. Well, you're not just providing your feedback. You could be providing other personal information that you're not even aware of. Because you don't read that 19,000 page disclaimer, right? Nobody does. We just take it for granted that, they're only going to take what they need. Okay, well, if you let a little kid in a candy store and you say, only take $1 worth of candy, you think they're going to take $1 worth of candy? No, they're not. So
I'd be worried about the kid if he did.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely keep that disabled. They don't need to know your feedback. If you want to provide feedback, shoot an email to support@whatever.com.
Yeah, I love the candy example. Another one that comes to mind is like, you have a house in a neighborhood and, you're just walking by and you have an opinion about someone's house. So you just staple it to their front door and you're just allowing anyone to make comments about anything they want for whoever to see, because you don't actually know who's looking at it or what they're looking at. So very, very good here. All right. So the next setting here is allow users to open files using the click once protocol is set to disabled. This sounds like probably something that bypasses some of the security checks and skips a scan or something. The click once really insinuates to me this is something happening faster for convenience, but probably less secure. Is that what this is saying, or what's
you're
this
exactly right. And again, I want to reiterate that this benchmark is assuming you have no other third-party vendor software applications running, because this would automatically get stopped. But yeah, basically this is just more for convenience. It's saying, here's an application to install. All you got to do is click it. We'll install everything in the background and let you know when we're done. That's great for convenience, but we don't know what you're doing. It's like I'll use one of your examples. You take your car to the mechanic and say, here, fix whatever needs to be fixed. We don't know what they're doing, and now you get a bill that's $9,000, right? When you only went in for an oil change.
But you can pay the bill with one click.
In the day and leave your keys. We'll take care of you. That's great. Yeah, so we definitely want this disabled.
Yeah. And to add to your example, it's a mechanic you've never been to before, so there's no innate trust or anything.
Yeah. Just leave me your keys. We'll fix everything that's wrong. Sure.
Yep, absolutely. And when you come back tomorrow, I'll remember you. Your car will still be here.
And trust me, we'll give you all the discounts that we have on the board.
Yeah, exactly. So one other aspect of this setting I want to talk about, a lot of these settings do tie together. One piece here is there's another setting we talked about in a different week that forces you to explicitly show, explicitly allow the, or explicitly select the install path or the executable path before the install will happen. So there's no single click download. You click it, you have to choose the path, and then you click OK. So it's an extra layer of checks and balances. This setting would likely bypass that other setting. So cool. And the next setting here, allow users to open files using the direct invoke protocol, is also set to disabled. Sounds super similar. Is there any real differences here to talk about?
Yeah, this is directly invoking, not just necessarily installation,
Even better.
but invoke any executable file, which obviously don't want to do because that could be chain linked to something else where now we're directly invoking malware or which can turn into ransomware or a keylogger, whatever it may be. So definitely no.
Yep. And again, I just said this, but these settings, right, they're tied together, right? If you don't do one but not the other, you're kind of just missing the point.
Exactly.
So please look through the CIS benchmarks, leverage us, right? We have a freemium. You can get all of these recommendations and all of these slides in our Senteon resource hub. So very much take your time. Don't just do a handful. There's 120 choices here, 120 different settings. So very much take your time, look at these, do what's best for your security posture. All right, Bill, 2 more settings, and we're making great time. My first guest with no camera, so congrats there. You'll forever be remembered.
And I apologize for no camera. You don't get to see my pretty face.
No worries at all. I think the only thing you really need to apologize is we really wanted to see your background. We're very jealous of where you're at right now.
I'll post pictures on LinkedIn, don't worry.
Absolutely, and we'll have to do a whole nother session just about your trip. Relate an Alaskan cruise to security. That'll be the next episode. All right. So the second to last setting here, allow users to proceed from the HTTPS warning page, is set to disabled. So a lot of the times when I go to an out-of-date website, Microsoft will say, hey, potentially harmful page, and then if you click more info, you can proceed anyway. Is that what this is referring to here?
That's exactly what it is. You go to a site and says, this site's not secure. Then you click advanced and it'll let you to go anyway. We definitely don't want to do that. There's no reason to go to a website that's insecure. We definitely don't want to do that.
And if you have all of your other HTTPS settings on correctly, but this one incorrectly, what's the point of the other ones?
It's a collective.
Yep, being 95% done with securing the HTTPS, allow, don't allow, and whatnot, you might as well be 0 if you miss this setting. So,
it's like locking all your windows but leaving your front door open.
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. Like, oh man, I'm doing as much as I can. It's like, hey, that's great. Kudos to you. But if you're not doing everything, or if you're not following the framework to configure your assets, and that's the thing we're talking about with this. We're talking about configuring assets. You have something, sure, it works, but is it configured to work the way you need it to without anything else, right? All of your clients, all of your end users, they have assets. Their computer is an asset. Their software is an asset. If you are responsible for managing it, which innately you are as their MSP, whether you know it or not, the client thinks you're doing it, you own these assets in a sense.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. All right. The last setting for the day, Bill, allow websites to query for available payment methods, is set to disabled. So this is not only saving your payment methods to the browser, which is a different setting. This one is allowing websites to query for payment methods. Tell us about this.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that, right? We go back to convenience again. You go to purchase something, you leave your credit card in there, and it says, save this for future. Yes, so I don't have to pull my wallet out and put that long number back in again. Yeah, everybody's guilty of that. But this allows websites to automatically query and say, what available payment methods are available, and then choose one. So that,
and it doesn't check to see if you are who you are before it queries.
Right. Your family member or coworker could put their Amex or whatever in there, and it'll just query it. So if you don't want your if you want your money to be taken, leave this enabled.
I mean, why when a bad actor compromises a single machine, why make things easier for him once he's
Exactly.
in?
Yeah, it's like leaving milk and cookies for the guy robbing your house.
Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
You know it.
Don't leave hungry, but make sure you take the TV and a glass of milk.
Exactly, right?
That's too funny. All right. That is the setting portion of the episode today. So let's dive in a little bit deeper into the attack pieces of what this is preventing the risk of. So we have, 6 of these attack techniques from MITRE ATT&CK laid out on the slide here. Bill, you talked about some throughout the episode, but again, just emphasize to me and the audience, how are these CIS benchmarks? How are just settings actually mitigating risk? And if you want to talk about any of these attack techniques, feel free. But tell us more about the attack side of the importance of setting these up.
Yeah, I mean, we've hit a lot of it, right? I mean, you don't want to make things easier for a bad actor, and like we say in cybersecurity, right? It's easier to attack than it is to defend, right? Attack, you can attack from anywhere. Where you're defending, you have to pick places where you have to defend from. So don't make it easier for them. These are simple settings that could be implemented. I know using the word benchmark and framework and MITRE ATT&CK, it sounds so advanced.
It does.
But put the terms aside, spend an hour or so, look at the benchmark, look at what it entails. And no one's saying you have to do all the controls in one day or in 1 month. Put a plan together. Like I was saying before, talk to your client, say, look, we are forging forward to upgrade your security posture. Over the next 45 days, we're going to be making a series of changes. And then internally in your MSP, say, okay, out of these 120 or out of these 500 controls, whatever framework you're using, break them up into phases and then do those phases. Don't never do everything at once, because then if you need to troubleshoot something, you're lost in the sauce, right? So you always want to do it phase by phase by phase. And it's really not that difficult, especially when you're using group policy. If you're not familiar with group policy, get familiar with it, or I mean,
it's not going anywhere.
Right. Or find a responsible vendor that you can work with, that you can afford in your budget, to work with you to implement these things. But no matter what, the bottom line is, if you are not implementing any benchmarks or frameworks for your clients, you are wrong. That's just the bottom line.
Wow, calling out you are wrong. I don't know if I've actually heard anyone say that, but I very much agree, right? You are not taking serious protection measures of the assets, right? Yes, you may have an EDR. Yes, you may have conditional access even, right? You may have all of these layers, but if you're not configuring things and any of those layers are broken, you're done, right? You're wrong. You have to look at the assets.
Well, look at this. I mean, I'll put it in a different way. If you call yourself an MSP, be an MSP. And this is the foundational responsibility of any MSP, is to implement frameworks and benchmarks that make sure you have a foundational security posture for your clients.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Very, very good takeaway there. And this next setting here, and we kind of just hit it, or the next slide here. The next, you kind of hinted at it, right? We talked in depth of the security value here, but you just said, if you're an MSP, if you call yourself an MSP, these frameworks, these benchmarks, they're critical. But, outside of the security perspective here, Bill, is there actually maybe operational efficiency, or is this just a cost that we're telling everyone to do? Hey, you need to do this. You need to invest money because you're an MSP, or is there an actual benefit outside of security you can talk about with this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's not really about spending money, right? A lot of these controls is more time than it is money, and I know time equals money, but we don't want to get that deep. But you don't have to go out and pay a monthly fee and all those things. You can get started on your own. If you don't have the experience, knowledge is free today. It is free. You can learn anything you want in any vertical you want. But put that aside. Yes, there's compliance that you have to follow, your clients have to follow. You have user impact, we talked about, tickets, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have some of these controls in, that's going to cause issues. You're going to have ransomware, or you're going to have some type of infection, or,
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't get worse, that where you actually get exploited with something, which is now going to cost you, the MSP, more time and money, which is
Yep.
now an impact to your business, let alone your client's business. So it behooves you to do that. Operationally, it makes things run smoother. You have, you have the trust of your client. They know that you're taking care of them. What that equals is more business. That equals more growth. That equals you are now being recognized as, I'll use this term loosely as well, an expert in your field, right?
But you are, and you know what? Let's pause there, right? Recognized as an expert in an industry that your end client really knows potentially little to nothing about. You may be no matter the level of maturity of your MSP, you will innately be viewed as an expert out of the gate. It's
Yeah.
up to you to maintain or grow that viewpoint with the customer, or you lose it. So that concept of just being that expert to them, how important is that from that relationship side? Go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, it's the most important thing, right? And that's why I said I use the word expert loosely, right? So, like you said, clients don't and I won't globalize, but a lot of prospects or clients,
There's no
they don't.
absolutes in this world. Is
Yeah,
that what you're
yeah,
saying?
right, right. They don't know what any of this that word. It's a different language to them. So when they see somebody come in and you talk about, in layman's terms, here's are the things that we can do. Here's the service that we can do. But not only talk about it, but actually follow through with it. You're
Yeah.
immediately going to be at that expert status in their mind, right? Because when you view somebody that knows more than you, or they talk confidently or intelligently, you automatically look up to them, right? So you want that, from that view from your clients, them to view you as an expert, or you specialize in this, or the best thing that you want from your client is, I have nothing to worry about.
Yep.
Balance Logic can take care of it, or Senteon can take care of it, or
Yep.
XYZ MSP. They got me. No matter what it is, they'll take care of it. But if you're constantly getting pushback, or you're getting complaints from your client, again, I go back and say you're wrong. You're doing something wrong, and you need to take a look and figure out what it is, because they're relying on you. Just like you go to the doctors and you rely on your doctor because they're the expert, even though they don't have all the credentials other doctors do, or your dentist, right? How
Sure.
many people really look at the credentials, your dentist or your doctors? They don't. It's a
I
given.
assume they're up to date.
Right. It's a given. You're a doctor, you're a dentist. So you've got that posture. So I automatically, inherently trust you as the expert. You need to have that position with your clients. But even more importantly, you need to follow through with that. Don't
Yeah.
don't make them think you're an expert and then let them down.
Absolutely. So that was awesome. And honestly, that probably could have counted as your takeaway from the episode there, Bill. But we are wrapping up here. I'm really excited for this marketing arm that you're going to be prioritizing a little bit, because you are speaking in very blunt terms and, telling people they're wrong, right? That is something that I think the industry needs and we want, right? I mean, let's talk about it from a vendor perspective. I want my partners to tell me, hey, the flow of this is horrible, or this doesn't make sense, or this is wrong, right? Whatever that is, like, that's the things we want to hear to be better. If you're an MSP, if you're a business owner of any industry, being told wrong can be one of the most powerful things, because it gives you a chance to take that and be right, to be better, right? So very excited for that marketing arm, Bill. You'll have to keep us very up to date on that so I can better promote it. But
Absolutely.
yeah. Any other just takeaways on what you want to leave the audience with before I wrap up the episode?
Yeah, I just think, I'll reiterate it, is if you call yourself an MSP, be an MSP. If you're an expert, be an expert, right? These are very common sense things that we can do as MSPs that make our clients feel more secure and feel better. And then again, there's a cost benefit. They're going to continue to come back to you
Yeah.
with it. It doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of money. Education and knowledge is free. You could go on YouTube, Udemy,
Yep.
all these places You can learn. If you are an MSP owner, you should be spending a X percentage of your time constantly renewing your knowledge and then passing that
100%.
knowledge down to your staff. You have to do that, regardless if you're an MSP or not. But we're talking about MSP, so you don't have to know everything, but as a leader, you should know where to point your staff and your team in the right direction to get this knowledge. And you shouldn't say, oh, the mindset shouldn't be, oh, my staff is taking care of it. No, you need to make sure they're taking care of it.
Delegation is powerful, but accountability is a little stronger.
Agreed.
Awesome takeaway there, Bill. So thank you again for being here and spending an hour with us while you're on a beautiful Alaskan cruise. I hope you've made it to the port since we started.
We are. We're here.
Oh, there you go. So hopefully you can go check out the land and hang out for a bit. But thank you for being here, Bill. I will happily catch up with you anytime, man. And
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, man. So to wrap up the episode with some of the things coming up. So next week, we actually have the friend who introduced us, and we can make this full screen. Henry Tim is coming on to talk about some more privacy and data control settings. I will be speaking over at CornCon in Davenport, Iowa in a couple weeks. Then we have our friend Roddy Bergeron and Tara Wheeler to kick off a couple more episodes. I think what is this? Part 6 of 12 we're at now. So we're about halfway through. Only 60 more settings to go just for the Edge browser. A lot to do. And if you want to check out the previous episodes, we do have our YouTube page and our website with all of the content. And if you want to check out Senteon and run some of these free assessments, just let us know you watched the webinar and we're happy to give these away. Thank you again. See you next week.